28 millions of Russians are not Russians, in fact. They are ethnic minorities, and each of these ethnic minorities is struggling from racism, discrimination, and the war. And if you have never met Asian Russians, congrats, because you're talking to one right now. Who the hell are Asian Russians anyways? So Russia is freaking huge, and it's only huge thanks to native people's lands, which is Siberia. This is Russia before they conquered Siberia, and this is nowadays Russia. What they want us to believe is that this was a peaceful integration of Siberian lands. This was not colonization, it was us, native people, who want to be a part of this great nation. You have to be so dumb to believe that any nation in the world would give up its own independence, its own resources, and become a part of another nation. Like, yeah guys, you're so freaking awesome, we want to be just like you. We want to give up our own culture, our own religion, language. We don't need any of that. Please take control over us and make all the decisions for us from now on. The only situation it would work like that is if you're a nerdy freshman at college and you want to be a frat guy. Then you're gonna be like, yeah, take everything from me, humiliate me, make fun of me so I can be just like you one day. God, I hope my ancestors were not like that. So the point being, there is no such thing like a peaceful integration of someone's lands. You only do this by making them suffer, by murdering them, raping them, and manipulating them at the very least. If you're an American, you have a pretty good idea of what colonization is like. And if you're a Spanish or Portuguese, you're also familiar with that, I feel like. And what we see right now is that people who were colonized once are still struggling from the consequences, because we are still being discriminated against very often, and we all have generational trauma. And Russia is no different. Surprise, surprise. This is what discrimination against native people looks like in nowadays Russia. There is a horrible thing happening right now, which is Russian invasion in Ukraine. The wars are terrible, they should not happen at all. But what makes this war even worse for us, for native people, is that we are more likely to be drafted and to die there. There is a gigantic disproportion of how often people of ethnic minorities are being drafted and killed compared to white Russians. Now, if you get easily bored by adult numbers and murders talks, you have to skip like next 2 minutes. Now that all these lazy asses are gone, here's what I found. So this is a chart with a ratio of adult men being killed in the war to every 10,000 of adult men by region. And this is as of December 7th this year. Since in Russia we have ethnic regions, this is a good representation of how often native people were drafted and were killed in the war compared to Slavic Russians. And if you look at the top regions by the number of men who died in war, all the top 3 regions are ethnic regions. The first one being Tuva, then Buryatia, which is my region, and Nenets Oblast. If you look at the first one, it's Tuva, and it's 50 people, compared to Moscow having 2 men. 2 men. So it probably gives you a very good idea about the dynamic here. There are also a number of minorities so tiny that men being drafted means that the whole nation, the whole minority will be gone soon. Like the Sami people, 4% of the adult male population died in the war. 4%. And this reminds me a lot of the Vietnam War, the fact that Black Americans were drafted more often than white Americans. Okay, we're done with this heavy, heartbreaking topic, and now we're gonna move on to the fun, very heartwarming thing like racism in Russia. I'm doing my best to keep this video fun, okay? You have to do your job on your end too, please. Have fun and comment how much fun you're having. I'm getting a lot of shit from my Russian viewers saying that there's no racism in Russia. We treat ethnic minorities so good. We let them flourish. Well, first of all, thanks. Thank you so much on behalf of all the native people of Russia for letting us flourish. Very generous of you. So, for the moment, I honestly was like, am I making this up? am I delusional about racism in Russia? That's why I asked my followers on Instagram to share if they have ever experienced racism. So before we dig into my DMs, let me share a story that my mom told me. My mom was 18-year-old Buryat with a bunch of her girlfriends from Buryatia, and they would travel into another Siberia city, which is Angarsk, with a substantial Russian population. They were on a bus. There was a Slavic guy staring at them and who then yelled, "Where did this monkey come from?" Is this racist? Not at all. I'm just making it up. Speaking of public transport and being harassed as an Asian, this is my friend's message. She was on a bus in Moscow and there was a guy who was harassing her, who was yelling at her and attacking her, saying, "Ni hao, why do you have Chinese here? This country is for Russians only." Then when she was at college, one of her professors was like, "I understand that Russian is not your native language, that's why it's harder for you." This is so messed up. How little this guy knows about his own country that he assumes that every Asian person is a foreigner. And he is a college professor, I remind you. This woman grew up in Sakha, Yakutia, just like I did, and she was called Yakutka, which is just a name of a native person. So what's happening is that they use a native people name as an insult. Then it's a cousin of mine who was attacked by a Russian Slavic woman who was yelling, "You dumb Buryats." The funniest part is that it was in Buryatia. This woman is a doctor, and one of her patients was like, "I need a Russian doctor, not an Asian one." The best part is that she came back to this woman, probably realized that white doctor doesn't mean better doctor. What a 19th century insight, right? And not only her patients were racist, but also her co-workers who were like, "Your name is too complicated. Let us come up with a new name for you so it's easier for us." What the fuck? She's not asking you to learn a whole new language. She's not asking you to learn like new couple of paragraphs. It's just one word. And this word is a person's name. Like, that's not racist at all. And the last story of my friend. She was at a client's office for a meeting and she was told, "We don't need cleaning right now, come back later." Why? Because she's Asian, and people assume all Asians are cleaning people. Here, I'm letting you be a judge of if Russians are racist or not. If we have any problem with Russians treating native people not the best way. Well, this was fun, right? If you're in the mood for more fun, you have to check out all of my other videos about Siberia, specifically this one, where I'm answering all the dumbest questions people ask on the internet. This one is funny for real though. I know that because I was the one writing all the jokes. Thanks for watching and see you next time.